Alright, what's going on, guys? This is Manelki, and today I'm taking a look at X4 Foundations, which is the latest entry into the X series by Egosoft. So I've recently picked this game up, so I just thought I'd do a real quick review on kind of my thoughts on the game, what it's all about a little bit, and what do I like, what do I don't like, what works, what doesn't work. Just kind of a basic first impressions review kind of thing on the game. So first things first, what is X4 Foundation? So basically, like I said, it's the latest entry into the X series. So the X series is a space kind of simulator-ish game, and basically you kind of have this open world where you can kind of build stations and trade with NPCs and mine minerals or whatever, and you can also engage in combat. You can join wars with factions, or you can decide to become a pirate and steal ships and attack people, and it's just an open sandbox where you can kind of do anything you want. So it's really gives you a lot of freedom, like the whole privateer thing where you start small and you have nothing and you slowly build your way up to riches and fame and profit and all that. So it's kind of one of those, and it does a great job of it. If you ever played any of the previous X games, Terran Conflict, Albion Prelude, or any of the previous ones like that, you'll have an idea of what's going on with this game. Now, this is not the sequel to X Rebirth. And X Rebirth was not the sequel to X3, so X4 is, of course, the sequel to X3. It kind of skips around Rebirth as far as its game direction is concerned. I'm not sure about the storyline and plot, how that all fits in exactly, but this game is definitely more X3. So if you're an X3 fan, you're like, oh, should I pick up this game? The simple answer is yes, but we'll get into why later. Yeah, TLDR, just buy it. Come back and watch the video later, I guess. But but anyway, no, it's a legit X game. So the game is completely single player. There's no online component, and I say that with a bit of an asterisk because I was planning on doing this video before the new patch comes out. I was actually come home today and get this video done and do it. But as it turns out, the 1.5 patch just dropped today. So because of that, there is actually a small online component. There's some new feature that I'm not exactly sure about where you can send a ship out into somebody else's save game out there who has agreed to allow you in, and that's turned on by default. So you have to give permission to let people come into your game and check it out. But that setting is turned on by default. So actually just a minute before I was getting ready to record this, I was just getting everything set up. And I'm sitting there in the game, and some guy pops up. It says visitor. And he starts flying around. I'm not sure, 100% sure, because I wasn't completely paying attention because I was a little bit flustered, but I think he might have been attacking me. I think he might have been targeting my ships. I was like, you know what, screw this. I don't have time for this. So I ended up killing him. It's too bad I didn't get that on recording. That would have been pretty funny. Yeah, I don't think it's meant as a PvP mode or anything like that. I'm not sure exactly how it works under the hood. I just saw the guy and shot him, and that was it. But there's some kind of explore other people's save game mode. So anyway, I've got that turned off for now until I understand it better. So there's a bunch of different races in the game, a bunch of different factions. There was a bunch of races in X3, and I think as it happens for X4, some of those races have splintered off into different sub-factions. So you can choose to ally with one of them or two of them or more. You can do missions for some of them to improve your standing, which will allow you in turn to, buy better blueprints or purchase more powerful ships and this kind of thing. All the same stuff you might be used to from these kinds of games. Get rep, get better stuff, conquer. That's kind of how it goes. So first of all, what do I like about X4? The biggest thing for me that stands out, I think, is just the massive open world. They've managed to recreate that feel of X3. So I was really always a huge fan of X3. I hate to keep harping on X3 in an X4 video, but you know what I'm trying to say. That whole feel of how the universe operated and how everything worked, they've managed to recapture that in X4. So I really, really appreciate that. I really like that. The scale of everything is just incredible. Now, when we're talking about scale, I'm talking about you can literally fly your ship around, and then you know what? I'm going to get up, and you can just get up from your seat, and then, a crew member will take over as a pilot, and you can walk around on your ship and kind of look out the window and watch it fly around, or if the ship is big enough, you can go onto the ship deck down below and, watch ships coming into dock with your ship, and you can kind of stand there and watch the universe go by as it takes you on a ride kind of thing. So that kind of sense of scale, and then you can fly into a docking yard or a shipyard or something, and you can land and get up out of your ship and just walk out into the station and walk around and talk to NPCs and hire people and go to that store over there and, hey, maybe buy an upgrade for your ship or buy a whole new ship entirely, and then while you're doing that, and you can go see the manager and talk about whatever, and then you look out the manager's office window and you see ships coming in the dock, or maybe you'll see your ship leaving. Or I mean, like the sense of scale that they've managed to achieve in this game is really impressive. You really do feel tiny in this massive open universe, and that's what you want out of an X game. So they did a really great job on that. And sort of following through with that idea of hugeness is the next point, which is the economy. So they have a really interesting, robust economy in X4. Now in X3, it was very much a kind of a buy-sell, supply-demand system. But there was no real, at least as far as I understand it, there was no real issue created by a lack of actual resources other than prices fluctuating, right? The AI did not require resources to build ships or do anything. But in X4, you have to have resources to build ships. Granted, I've heard the AI gets unlimited like money credits, but they do not get unlimited resources to mine and build ships. So they literally have to send out mining ships in order to gather the resources in order to build new ships to fund, to further their war efforts against the other factions, which means the economy is very alive and very real, which means if you, let's say, start targeting a particular faction's mining ships, they're not going to have the mining resources in order to build more ships and keep up their war effort and that kind of thing. So you can really cripple a faction by targeting its economy. Target the mining ships, target the freighters, target the traders that are going back and forth through their space, and you can really set that kind of thing up. So it's really good that way. I really like that kind of depth, that attention to detail, and it makes it feel like everything you're doing matters, because it really does. If that mining ship doesn't make it back to the dock or whatever, to the wharf with like all its ore, they're not going to have the ore there, or the minerals or whatever they need to build their ship, and they'll be stifled that way. They'll be crippled. So that's a really nice touch, and I really like how they did that. The shipbuilding system in X4 is actually an improvement over X3, I would say. So in X3, you just bought a ship. That's it. You just click what ship you want, click buy, and it's yours, which in a way is cool. But in X4, there's a little bit of a build time, and the larger ships take a little bit longer to build. Whatever, it's not a big deal. There's plenty to do while you wait. Now also, of course, you have to have the resources, which is, on one hand, you might find that a nuisance, but on the other hand, it's very satisfying when you do build a ship, because you had to gather those resources, or at least, pay the money to the shipyard to, build the ship, and the shipyard, of course, has to wait till it has the resources, or you can supply them yourself, or that kind of thing. So having a ship built in X4 is a lot more satisfying. And also, there's a lot more options, of course. So in X3, like I said, you just bought a ship and it's yours, whereas in X4, you can outfit the ship any way you like. You can put what turrets you want on which hard points. You can say what kind of shields you want here or there, what kind of weapons you want, right down to what type of engine you want. Like, there's combat engines, which give you maybe more maneuverability, or there's travel engines, which will beef your travel mode, which helps you go faster, and we'll talk about that in a bit. So there's all kinds of customization to do, and you can even throw on funny little skins. You can even like decorate your ship with colors, or there's a bunch of little decals you can slap on your ship, and you can even use custom decals. I put my own little custom logo on my ships, which is kind of cool. As I was saying about the travel mode, the ships have 4 different modes. In X3, getting around was a little, like, if you didn't have a jump drive, getting around was a little bit of pain unless you were in like a tiny ship. So like a tiny little Kestrel Scout, you could zip around the galaxy without too much trouble. Plus there was SETA, so you could just advance time faster. In X4, SETA does exist. It unlocks a little bit later, but there is no jump drive. So if you have a big ship, well, your big ship goes slow. But there's little kind of asterisks on that. There's, like I said, 4 different modes. You have a travel mode. So I think you hit shift 1, your HUD goes a little bit orange, and what that's going to do is that's going to put you into travel mode, which makes you go super fast. There's a scanning mode, which lets you scan the stations, kind of similar to X Rebirth if you played that. So you can scan the stations and get intel on them, and sometimes find hidden missions, get secret blueprints, or even get discounts and that kind of thing. So that little mini game, I guess, is back from X Rebirth, which is kind of fun. I like that. They've made an improvement as well to the highways. In X Rebirth, the highways were a bit of a mini game, and the first time I played it, I was like, okay, cool, but it got really annoying really quickly, and I think generally it wasn't very well received. So they've improved that in X4, and the highways are not a mini game. You just hop on the highway and you go. That third mode, of course, is a long range scanner, which is pretty cool. You can send out a ping, you'll get little pings from anything interesting going on way off in the distance. So it's a kind of a cool way to see if there's anything cool going on in the sector, anything you should go maybe check out. It'll reveal stations for you, because the sectors in X4 are huge. probably a lot bigger than they were in X3, just by sense of feel, and they are completely, fully three-dimensional, so there could be something above you, there could be something below you. It's not just this flat. I mean, most of the stuff is arranged on a flat plane, but you can find secrets up and down, so it's pretty cool that way. Although the ship AI is a little bit suspect, the combat in this game is still fun and satisfying. The enemies are fun to shoot at. The combat mechanics are quite solid, I find, when you're flying around shooting stuff. It feels good. The different ships feel like they have different weights to them. Your turrets, or your guns rather, are kind of on gimbals, so as you move your mouse or your cursor or whatever it is, your guns will kind of follow your cursor, so it's kind of a neat little feeling of the gunplay. Joystick works really well. I personally play with the joystick. I find it just more engaging to me, but I mean, to each his own. Controller works, joystick works, mouse and keyboard works just fine. Now, speaking of the combat, when you're engaged against capital ships, there's even subsystem targeting. So, for example, if you're going up against a destroyer, you can maybe zip by and take a pot shot at his shield generator, or launch some torpedoes at his shield generator and blow up that and take his shields down. Or, of course, he's going to have tons of turrets shooting at you. You can blow up his turrets or shoot out his engines, which will disable him and slow him down or stop him, that kind of thing. So that's a really, really cool feature. I really like that a lot. Alright, so let's talk about the things I didn't like so much about X4. First and foremost, the kind of elephant in the room is the bugs. Now, when this game launched, it did not launch in a very good state. Nothing like, it's not like No Man's Sky or Fallout 76 or any nonsense like that, but it was in a pretty rough spot. Lots and lots of bugs. Now, it wasn't unplayable. The game was perfectly playable on launch. There was bugs, but, you know, you could basically play it, and it was basically fine. But there was enough bugs to be irritating once you got deep enough in the game to start noticing them. They became really aggravating. Upon launch, not the greatest. The team over at EgoSoft has been pretty hard at work fixing all these bugs, and they're constantly putting out patches. And like I said, they've just, as of the time of this recording, just put out the 1.5 patch, which fixes a whole slew of irritating bugs. So they're doing really good work. They're really supporting this game, and I really like that. But the fact of the matter is, you got to judge it on how it ships, right? You got to be unbiased. You got to be fair in your review. So as confident as I am that these bugs will be fixed promptly, and you know, within a few months this game is going to be like smooth and beautiful, the fact of the matter is we have to be fair and objective and evaluate everybody evenly. So the bugs are there, so just kind of bear that in mind if you look to pick this game up. The AI, like I said before, in this game is a little bit clunky. Ships will fly around nonsensically. Trying to use the carrier ops is a bit awkward. So what I mean by that is you can dock ships on other ships. So if you're flying a carrier, for example, you can of course have smaller craft dock with your carrier, and you can set them to defend your carrier. So if you get attacked, they'll, you know, go out and fly and protect you. But it's extremely clunky in the sense that it looks like drunk people trying to take off and land, and they bump into each other, and the pathing is goofy and it doesn't really work, and it's a little bit clunky that way. So the combat AI is kind of weird. Like when they're fighting, they're weird. Like you can send 5 of your ships, like 5 fighters out to fight, you know, 2 or 3 enemy fighters, and there's a good chance you're gonna lose fighters. Like some of your guys are gonna die just because of how hilariously bad the combat AI is. Now, they've talked about improving that in this 1.5 patch. As of the time of this recording, I haven't actually tried it. We'll certainly test that later. Apparently the AI is improved, but as it is right now, my first impressions thus far from my time, the AI has been a little off. Like, for example, I would tell my destroyer to attack the enemy destroyer, and they're facing each other, right? And the destroyer's got forward-facing batteries, so you'd think it'd just kind of fly up and start shooting. But no, what my destroyer did, he flew a little closer to the enemy destroyer, and then he turned around. He did like a 180, and he showed his engines to the enemy destroyer, and then the enemy destroyer was like, okay, well, I guess I'll just kill you then. So, you know, they do dumb things like that. They don't really behave in combat like you would expect them to, and it's a little bit disappointing there. So they need to do a lot of work on their AI and their pathing and their targeting and that kind of stuff. So just basic AI stuff hopefully gets ironed out in the future. The default controls in this game, wow. If you're looking to pick this game up, the first piece of advice that I would give you is spend the first 30-40 minutes tinkering with your control scheme, particularly if you're planning on using a joystick, which I recommend, by the way. I really like the feel of the joystick in this game, but if you're going to be using a joystick, I would definitely recommend tweak those controls the way you like them. Don't even try and play the game, not even the tutorial. Don't even fly until you've got those controls just the way you like them, because I promise you, you will pull out your hair. If you don't happen to have hair, you will be pulling at your head as though you had hair. So just don't even try it. Just set up those controls the way you want them, because the default controls are just aggravating. They don't make sense. So yeah, controls suck until you customize them. Oh, and by the way, it's delete to clear a binding. You're welcome. Another thing I'm not too keen on is when you compare it to X3, there's a lot less content in the game. So things like number of sectors. Now, on a bit of an aside here, the developer has said it's not about the number of sectors, it's about the size of sectors. And as we said before, the sectors are huge, but still, you know, when you do compare it, it does seem a bit meh. Don't get me wrong, the universe feels huge, but you do have to compare, right? So there's less sectors, there's a lot less ships, there doesn't seem to be, you know, an amazing amount of ships. That's the kind of thing I'm sure they'll add in expansions and future updates and stuff like that. But again, at the time of this recording, to be totally fair and objective, there's not a lot of ships. Again, not a huge amount of weapons to pick from. There's not that many races anymore. Like in X3 there was a bunch, and then this one there's 3 races, maybe 4 with a few factions. There's less races, so there's just less content in general, right? Which is, you know, in a way to be expected when the game is brand spanking new, but it's just how it goes. There's less content, you know, take that as you will. So all in all, what do I think of the game? Well, all in all, I actually really love this game. I've already put, I don't even know how many hours into it. It's really, really addictive, really, really fun. And everything I liked about X3, I'm finding again here in X4. So I am a huge fan of it. Really like this game. Now, see, I'm a little bit torn on the score here, because, you know, there's the bugs, which are somewhat heinous, just the amount of them. The game does feel a bit clunky, but at the same time, I'm really loving it. So it's kind of like, I want to give it an 8, but that feels a bit disingenuous given the bugs, right? But at the same time, giving it like a 6 or a 7 wouldn't really represent how much really enjoyment I've already gotten out of the game. It would be weird. So I guess I'll have a little compromise. I'm gonna give this game maybe a 7.5, because I am thoroughly enjoying this game, and I definitely recommend it, particularly if you're an X series fan. I highly recommend it, but on the other hand, it does have a lot of issues. And like I said before, they are aggressively attacking these issues, and they're doing a great job, but there's much more to do. So it's that sort of balance where I kind of have to evaluate. Now, maybe I'll do a re-review in 6-8 months or something like that and see where the game's at. But for now, I'm going to give it a 7.5 out of 10, because despite the bugs and despite the technical issues, I am having a blast with this game. So there you have it, folks. That is my take on X4 Foundations by Ecosoft. You can pick it up on Steam, but I think that's going to be it for me on this one. So if you liked the video, hit the like button and subscribe and share and click the bell, and you know the drill. Click all the things. Except the dislike button. Don't click that. Just kidding. You can click it if you want. But anyway, that's been it for me. So as always, guys, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.